Hello, everyone, and welcome back to A Cup of Coffee, the show to go with your morning cup of coffee. I am Aman, and this is my co host, Umar.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So, Aman, what have you been thinking about this week?
So, this week, of course, I have been thinking about our wonderful new cup of coffee mugs. For those of you on YouTube, yeah, these are
Yeah,
really sick. So, that's been really awesome. We may start doing merch soon. Comment down below if you're interested. Um, but so, yesterday, actually, yeah. I've obviously, we've been in quarantine for quite a while, but it was yesterday that it really, like when after a really, really long time, a couple of like certain things just hit you different. Um,
yeah,
so I had to do run some errands with my mom in the middle of it because it was cloudy outside. We were like, it's a good day to pick up some hot chocolate. And so we were like, let's go get some hot chocolate. But the best hot chocolate place around was inside the mall. And so we were like, okay, we'll mask up and then we'll go inside the mall, pick up the hot chocolate, and go out, right? It should be pretty safe. So we go ahead, we go park outside the mall, we go inside, and I walked through the door, and just a wave of memories once I walked inside the doors of Stonebriar hit me. And, like I remember going to see movies with my friends and going to the Cheesecake Factory and, like all the good moments that I had had. And it just hit me, and I was like feeling nostalgic and emotional. And I was like, no, everything sucks right now. I hate quarantine. I hate life. I just want to go back home now. This is much sadder than I thought it would be. Um,
no,
but
yeah. I never thought yeah, I never thought you'd feel nostalgic for Stonebriar of all
right?
places.
Yeah. And yeah, one of my first memories of Stonebriar is I had never been there, and I just moved here, and I was at school for like it was one of my first few days at school, and somebody like my Spanish professor had a picture of a mall, and he used a picture of Stonebriar, and I was like, "Whoa, that's a really, really nice mall." And then somebody was like, "Dude, that's like 10 minutes from here. That's Stonebriar." I was like, "No way. That's so cool." But yeah, like after a while Stonebriar just feels so like yeah, we go there like all the time. It's literally right here. I used to work across the street from it. So it's nothing special.
Mhm.
But now going to Stonebriar is like, oh my god, man, I miss this place. This was the spot. um, so yeah, just
Yeah,
thinking about like being able to see a movie with my friends and going out to eat. I guess I've gone out to eat a lot less lately, which is good for me. Um, like there are some benefits. Obviously, school's a little bit easier. Aside from the honor lock classes, even though most of my teachers give me open note tests, even with honor lock, which I don't understand, but that's a whole nother conversation. Um,
yeah,
but it's not like yeah it just hit me at that point, and I was like, I'm sick of this. How have I done this for so long? I don't know how much longer I'm going to last. um so
yeah. It almost feels like going out makes like you think like going out would make staying in easier, but it doesn't.
yeah,
It makes it harder.
yeah, exactly. You're just like, okay, well, at least I get to go out a little bit. And then it's like, no, I don't want to go out a little bit. I want to go all in. Right? That's all or nothing. Right? Because when you're not there, then you don't have anything to miss. 'Cause especially because like yeah, I can go out, but yeah, I'm gonna be wearing a mask and going to pick up my food from a restaurant where it's going to be very difficult for anybody to understand me. So I can't socially interact with anyone. That's another huge thing for me, is just meeting strangers, because I would be, I would be the kind of guy that if I'm at a coffee shop or a restaurant and, I meet somebody that's in line next to me and neither of us is talking, it's weird to me, so I'll make conversation. So, like I would just meet so many strangers, but now it's just, like they have to stand outside while I'm ordering my food.
Yeah, and like when someone approaches you now, you're just like,
I'm sorry,
just,
what?
just like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man?
Yeah. You're like the
Social
caveman.
distance.
And then it turns around when somebody talks to me, you're like, oh. So it's just so
Also, it's
weird.
also like social distancing all the time. Just whenever someone walks near you, it just like part of you just automatically just backs away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing is it's harder to understand people behind masks. I can't tell you how many times I've been ordering food and they were like what, and I was like what, it just continued for a little while. So yeah, just
Yeah,
those
that's why
things.
I order over the phone.
Yeah, it's the best. So those things have really been hitting me. So I guess, a question that I have for you is like, how has quarantine affected your daily life, and what are some of the things you miss most from being able to go out?
I mean, it's I mean, for one thing, it's put me at home a lot longer than I'm used to,
Yeah.
just because the past couple of years at university, I'm out like all day. I had an on-campus job as well, so I wouldn't come home till like between 8:30 and 10.
Hmm.
I'd leave at 9 and I'd come home like till like 11, 12 hours later, right?
Yeah.
I pretty much was out all day. And, if you know me, I don't really sit down that much when I'm outside. It's
Hmm.
just like, like outside of classes, I spend a lot of time just walking around doing random things.
Yeah.
Um, like pretty much the only time I'd sit outside of classes when you'd find me in the SSA.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, so I'd be a lot more. I guess I was a lot more active.
Hmm.
Um, And yeah, so a big part is that staying inside.
Yeah.
Uh,
And just
I
sit
mean, there's
down.
benefit. Yeah, I mean, there's benefits to it. Like I've been able to game a lot more than I got to
That's
before.
true.
Um, Not that I wasn't able to game before at UTD because my laptop's good enough
Yeah.
to do that. But
It's
yeah,
just not the same. I mean, especially because like, people are gonna come and be like, "Hey, you want to hang out?" And that was a different kind of fun. And I
yeah,
remember that. And obviously, being able to walk around a lot more and having to walk around campus is not only good for your physical health, but your mental health as well.
yeah. And on top of that, I could do things spontaneously.
Hmm. Yeah.
If I was hanging out in the SSA and somebody was like, let's go to Chopped and get lunch, I was like, sure, let's do it.
Yeah. And then someone would
Uh,
say, "Let's go to Halal Shack," and you could just say, "No, I will. Why would I
yeah.
do that?"
So yeah, and I could just never talk to them again.
Exactly. Um, and like that one time that me, you, and Fiz were like, "Yo, let's just go to the city. Let's go to Dallas after our classes are done." And we just went to Dallas. We went to the DMA to go see some art, and then we got some
Uh,
Emporium pies and Big Guys
yeah, that
afterwards.
yeah, that's another thing. I mean, that wasn't really a part of my routine, but that was something we did every once in a while.
Yeah,
We could just hop on the train, head to Dallas, and then
exactly.
go see some art museums for like what for free, right?
For free.
The DMA and the Chrome Museum were both free, so we got to see a bunch of cool art, and then we got to cap it all off with some really good pies.
Yeah,
So
some yeah, and Big
we always
Guys in the
had that
middle.
option. Yeah, we always had that option of the day trip, and like even if we were too late for the art stuff, we could have just gone and seen a play at the theater as
Yeah.
well. They're showing the color. The color is that what's it called? The color purple, I think. Uh,
The one. Are you talking about that one place that's black and white? Or are you talking about
no,
something at the DMA or
as um, it's a play that I saw when I was looking stuff up.
mm.
It's called The Color Purple.
Oh,
They're
okay.
showing it somewhere in Dallas.
Wait, never
It's
mind. I
based off
thought
a novel. I don't remember much about the premise, but it looked interesting.
mm,
So we could have done that.
yeah. There's a lot
We
of
had
things
the
that you can just
option.
do
Yeah,
spontaneously.
we could have just done stuff. But now, if you want to do anything, you have to carefully plan it out like it's a SWAT team
Yeah,
operation.
exactly. Um, so it's just been quite a lot. And I mean everyone can relate to that. But another thing that I've missed, especially because so I started at UTD. You were at UTD for like a year and a half, and
Yeah.
then I started at UTD, and within like 2 months had to just stop going to UTD and stay at home. So I hardly got the experience of being able to be there,
Yeah,
which was
that's unfortunate.
yeah,
It's because we got to because like when you were at college, we didn't get to hang out as often.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
right?
You
Because
know, it was still 18 minutes away from you. So
yeah,
and Sucre
yeah. I
Cafe
mean,
was a lot closer to me than it was to you.
yeah, yeah. Because we mostly just hang out when we went to debate tournaments together.
Yeah, pretty
Uh,
much.
yeah. Uh, yeah. So at UTD, we'd just hang out in the SSA whenever we wanted,
Exactly.
and just school in general was a lot more fun. It was harder, but like you had all the other benefits of school.
Yeah.
Now you don't really get the learning benefit as much,
Yeah,
and you get none of the other benefits. So
exactly.
it just
You just get
yeah,
the
because
grades, which
yeah,
is like what all those Bollywood tell you, all those Bollywood movies tell you is not the only thing that matters, like the Three Idiots message. It's like, don't just chase the number, which I 100% agree with. But now, well, what else
yeah,
can you do?
exactly. Because like you don't realize how much stuff you can do at university until it's taken from you. Because
Uh-huh.
I mean, because like a lot of stuff happens at university. They do giveaways every once in a while. There's always something going on to plan.
Yeah.
Um, just even hearing that background crowd noise in the student union building is nice.
Yeah.
Um, on top of that, like you had all those activities, like you know how they showed movies every Wednesday. Like I got to see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Uh, after yeah, it was like right after an exam. I got to see that, and that was great.
Yeah.
Um, the guy and they had a Q&A with the guy who played Bruce Lee, so that was
Which is
amazing.
awesome. Yeah. I mean, they do some really like we give UTD a lot of crap, but it's a good school, and it's
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just us crapping on UTT is our own way of showing school spirit. We're all just kind of cynical here at UTT, so this is our way of
yeah.
you know showing school spirit.
Yeah, exactly. But on the subject of school and quarantine memories, something that's come up a lot in my mind is, um, you know, school before college and the K through 12 education, and being in high school where you and I met, and just a lot of the things at that time were just feel so different because everything changed when we got to college, and then 2 years later when we didn't expect it to, everything changed again. So that kind of feels like we were at peace. Things were a lot simpler and we were in a comfort zone there. um, well, relatively, because even though Jasper and Plano West weren't all that great, they did feel like home. um,
Yeah,
so
I
I
mean,
guess,
I felt like a slightly abusive home, but still.
yeah, it wasn't the best home, but it was a home. And so I guess the question that I have for you is, this can be from those years at Jasper and Plano West, or this can be before your high school years. What's like, do you have a teacher or a couple of teachers that you remember that were just, like really, really good and inspired you, or you had a really good time in their class?
Uh, so like down the years, I've had like a couple like really memorable teachers. Uh, so like in third grade, I had this Indian guy, Mr. Farid. He was a short Indian guy with glasses, very strict, yelled a lot,
Yeah.
gave a lot of homework. Uh, but like I still did well in the class.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I was third grade, so that's not really saying much. But I don't know. I just for some reason his
Okay, then my
my
third
like
grade math.
yeah, but like that third grade really stuck with me just because I guess he instilled a lot of that. Uh, a lot of the, I guess he instilled the sort of work ethic he needed for classes in high school and college later on, really early on, so that
Yeah.
you know that jump wasn't really as much.
Hmm.
Um,
Where were you for third grade?
I was in Manarat in Riyadh,
Okay.
so Saudi, yeah. So yeah, I was still in Saudi, and then after that, like if we jump to high school, let's see, ninth grade. I mean, let's see, if we jump to West, I really enjoyed my time in A Push with Ms. Hudson. Uh, I just thought she showed a lot of passion for history, and I generally do enjoy uh, learning history, so I really enjoyed my time in her class.
Hmm.
And maybe this is cheating, but like I think all the debate coaches I've had, so that's including McCaffrey, Leto, Smith. I think they've all. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this podcast
Yeah,
if they weren't there.
that's true.
So big shout out to them and big
Yeah,
credit to them for
100%.
making me a lot more confident and putting my voice out. And
Yeah,
we got to hang out a lot more because of debate.
that's
So I
true.
think
Yeah,
a big credit to them for making this podcast happen.
that's true. Yeah, they were incredible teachers. And we still owe, well, I still owe Smith for judging at Plano West. You've done that. Well, are you in the
Yeah,
process of doing that actually?
right before this and right after this.
Yeah. Um,
Uh,
so
yeah, so yeah, and I think, well, our next guest as well.
yeah.
But yeah, so what were some teachers that really affected you throughout your school years?
So I had this one that I will never forget. Also in third grade for me, strangely enough. It was it was such a fun year because of this teacher. She was hilarious, and she was nice to pretty much everyone. Um, and the thing about her is like she wanted everyone to just like have a good time in class. Right? I'll never forget. It was Miss Umar in third grade, and despite my mom being the teacher's assistant that year, it was a really fun year. And she would do random fun things like take us out and bring a pinata and let us all take turns hitting it. And then when none of us could break it because we were 8 years old, she would break it for us, and we would all reach for the candy and put as much as we could in our bags. And then on character day, when the whole school was allowed to just wear, because we had uniforms, it was a private school, the whole school was allowed to
Right.
wear whatever they wanted, whatever character, as long as they were a character they could wear whatever they wanted. They could be any character that they like. Every student had the choice to be any character in the entire world, and so Miss Summer had this idea where our class could be Miss Frizzle's class from the Magic School Bus, and so she was Miss Frizzle. My mom was it the iguana or was it a chameleon? The her
I
her
can't
pet.
remember. It's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been a
it
while since we
was.
watched that.
It was Miss Frizzle's pet, and obviously there were too many students in the class for just Miss Frizzle's class, so we had doubles. And so me and one of my other friends got to be, I think his name was Arnold from the show, and everyone had a catchphrase. So when assembly came up, like they were, we actually got presented to the entire elementary school, and everyone got to present their own catchphrase in the class. So like all of the different characters' catchphrases got shown, and Arnold's thing was that he would just laugh a lot. So me and my friend just had to laugh like when the mic got given to us, and then we just started like I was so nervous, and the mic just came to us, and we just started dying. Like we just started laughing really hard, and it was great. It was awesome. So
That's
I had a
really
really
great.
fun time in her class, and that kind of taught me that learning can be fun, and it's not just an arduous process that we all have to go through in life, and everything is dreadful. Um, so it was good. I'm glad that I went through that. And then in high school, I had a couple of really memorable teachers. Mr. Wolf for physics was incredible, especially because physics is hard for many, but he made it fun for us. He made it exciting, and he made it easy to learn. Miss Riedling for English was really great for me. I actually read the books in her class, unlike majority of the time when I would just spark notes things, and she would know when I spark noted things. She thought like this one, because I did that a lot, and she thought this one time she was like, it was like a midway through when we were reading a book, there was a test on it, and she was like, all right, Amon, you probably sparks noted this, so but if you did, you're not going to do good on this test. But I actually read the book, so I got a 97. And she was like, wow, okay. And then so her class was really fun. And yeah, I've had some pretty good teachers. I think those are the ones that I would remember the most, I think. And they just
Yeah.
like had a really great impact on my life because, oh, and God, I forgot his name. I don't know how I forgot his name. Uh, I'm so bad. I wasn't like that close with this teacher, but one thing that I gained from his class, it was in English in my senior year, and one thing that I gained from his class, like it wasn't so super memorable or anything, but I just remember finding out that like because he would explain the books to us as we read, he wouldn't tell us to read something at home and then come back and answer questions about it. He would go through it in class instead. He would explain it, and then because a lot of the texts were sometimes a lot more difficult to read, than like it would just read the Odyssey the first time and completely understand what's going on, because like it's very old text. And I guess if we were seniors in high school, we would have understood most of what was going on, but there's still like a lot of the kids would be lost, so he would just go through things like that in class. He would go through everything in class, and it was fun, it was interesting, he made it interesting for us. And so there were a lot of things that we did in that class where, again, like I learned that learning could be fun and interesting even 9 years after my third grade. Even the higher level stuff, like this can be fun. And so that's what I base a lot of things off of right now. Just the teachers that taught me learning can be interesting and fun and at the same time valuable. That's why I do a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. That's why I have the 20-hour project, and that's why we're learning so much from this podcast, and I'm just loving
Right.
it. So it's you can have a good time while at the same time, bringing value to yourself and even potentially others. So that's
Right.
yeah.
Well, that was good. That was really good, and I think that's all the time we have for just the two of us. But we actually have a teacher on for our next segment, so that's going to be really exciting. Yeah, it's going to be Miss Farhana, and yeah, so cue musical transition. And we're back with Miss Farhana. Why don't you introduce yourself? Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
All right, so my name is Farhana Razak. I am currently a teacher at Imagine International Academy of North Texas in McKinney. We're a charter school, K through 12. I've been teaching for over 10 years, various subjects and multiple grade levels.
Awesome, very interesting. So I guess we're diving right into the main subject here, but I am very very curious about this. How has quarantine affected like the way that you? Because I know teachers have a lot of different styles, and even your classroom is probably decorated in a certain way sometimes, and it's just a certain way that you treat your kids. How has that changed because of the pandemic?
Um, I want to say when I started the school year, we all started online, so our admin actually requested us to check in with students a little more frequently on a personal level, simply because some of them, their parents might have lost their jobs. Maybe they're alone at home because their parents are at work, so they're not in the same situation they were in back in February, for example.
Hmm.
So it is a lot more about making connections with students and making sure that they're doing okay because a good number of them are not.
Yeah. Okay. That's really nice of the staff to like give you guys that message and to view for you to reach out to a lot of the students. So what is like I don't know very much about Imagine, so if you could just a little background on like where you teach and so it's a private school, I assume?
It is a charter school.
A charter school. Okay, yeah, you said that. So how is that different, like for the kids? Like how is that different from normal public schools, and how do you think the quarantine experience differs from normal public school?
Um, from what I've heard from friends and family, the public schools, I mean, everybody's doing the best they can, but because our charter school has a much smaller population than public schools, we're able to cater to students on a personal level,
Hmm.
and we're able to connect with them on a daily basis. We have counselors in the lower school because we're a K through 12 school. We have counselors in the lower school and the upper school, and they're able to communicate with students on a daily basis. And they have a roster of kids that they check in with. Um, but as far as the school itself, we're just smaller. A
Hmm.
lot of parents send their kids to our school because of the rigor and the IB curriculum that we teach.
Okay.
And it's a different style of learning. It's not for
Yeah.
everybody,
Hmm.
but if students are motivated to learn in the system, by the time they finish 12th grade, they get 1 year of college credit. I believe
Oh,
I could
really?
be wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of advanced we take courses a little earlier. For example, I teach eighth grade, but
Hmm.
my eighth graders are taking biology with me.
Uh, hmm.
And then I,
That's
yeah,
really
and then
cool.
I have Yeah, so we take courses a little earlier. We have seventh graders that take Algebra 1 if they're ready for it, but most
Yeah.
of the kids take it in eighth grade. So
Wow.
it's a little faster track than
Okay.
public school.
Okay.
Hmm. And so, why did you? Well, I guess this is two questions, but why did you become a teacher in the first place? Why did you enjoy that field, and why did you choose this particular school to teach at?
All right, so going into teaching, I was getting a degree in chemistry at UT Austin.
Hmm.
I towards my final, well, midway to closer to the end, I was looking at job options, and I realized if you have a chemistry degree in the bachelor's level, all you can do is be doing lab research,
Yeah.
which was intriguing at one point, but it wasn't something I wanted to do in the long run. So
Okay.
I had a roommate at the time. She was taking teaching courses and she was in the teaching program at UT Austin. And there's a pretty neat program if anybody wants to go into teaching. It's called the U Teach program,
Hmm.
and they actually have a collaboration between the College of Education and the College of Natural Sciences, and it's a fast track to get a teaching certification.
Oh,
So
that's
I tried out a course or two, and then I thought that's something I want to do. Plus, you get summer vacation, which is always a bonus.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
And then now that I have kids, I have the holidays match up with my kids, so I don't have to worry about childcare
Mm,
and make sure that somebody's available to watch them.
okay.
Um,
Right.
so yeah, um, I chose to teach at Imagine. I don't know. I was teaching at private schools previously. Um, I want to say about four different schools
Hmm.
before I found Imagine, and I really think I belong here, and I can make more of a difference at Imagine versus at the other schools I was
Mm.
at. I was actually teaching at the same school Omar was at.
Yeah. Good
Oh
grade.
wow.
Eighth grade.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, no, I remember that. That's so that's really nice.
yeah. So like going more into like teaching and like how you teach. Because I know for a lot of professors, for me, they've had a lot of difficulty maintaining the style of how they teach during the pandemic with all of it online. So, uh, is there any way you've adjusted the way you teach the kids, uh, in order to either maintain that style or
So
adjust
I
it?
do have a group of kids. Okay, so it's the style of teaching.
Yeah.
I do have a group of students who come in physically right now, and I have another group of students who online still. The content the same. The style obviously is going to be different.
Hmm.
Um, there's also online. They don't get to do the same labs as we used simply because we can't share supplies. We can't even, yesterday I asked who needed to use a ruler to measure something, and they couldn't share the rulers because that's against our protocol that we have.
Yeah.
So it's a sanitization. We spend a lot of time maintaining safety protocols versus the teaching itself. It has
Mm.
changed. I do have to take my lessons down to bare minimum, which is not ideal, but
Yeah.
that's what
Right.
Okay. Very
we
interesting.
normal as possible. Our school is doing things like, so we have a red day, we have an international dress day. So even the online students want to participate in that just because they want a sense of normalcy. But as far as me teaching them, I go through a little bit of lecture for about 10-15 minutes. I might have them do some group work, and in Zoom, you can do breakout rooms where they discuss. Obviously, I can't walk around to each room and make sure everybody's on task because when they're in the Zoom rooms, I can't watch them. So if they're off doing
Yeah.
TikTok videos, that's kind of something that's out of my control. So you have to learn to let a lot of those things go,
Hmm.
um, because it's not something I can control from where I am.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a very important thing. I mean, not just in teaching, I feel like. But that, like you learn in life, it's just, if something isn't under your control, sometimes it's best to just not worry about it, because I heard it best a couple of days ago when I was listening to a podcast where they said sometimes we spend time worrying about the things we can't control, and that keeps us from controlling the things that we can. So I have a lot of respect for that teaching style that you're keeping up then.
Yeah, and for example, some of my units I used to do tests, and I can't do tests anymore because I'll have a group of students. If I say closed notes test, I have those group of students who are honest and they will fail the test, but they will not cheat. But then I have other students who, they'll get the highest grades just because they look through their book. So
Yeah,
now I have to modify everything to make sure that I just tell them it's open because I can't control
yeah,
what they're doing, on their end of the computer.
yeah, exactly. And you can make it more difficult, based on that. You can say that, yeah, you might be able to look through your books and your notes now, but it's going to be a little bit harder because you can do that. So just adaptability is something that um, we're all being taught in this difficult time, especially teachers and a lot of the day-to-day workers. So I guess we'll this is a very serious subject, so we may sway away from this a little bit here, or stay on the subject. But a question that we always love to ask, and I'm very intrigued to know from your perspective, is what is something that you are a big nerd about?
Can you repeat your question?
What is something that you're a big nerd about?
Okay, so this is easy. Recently, so I think about a year or two ago, I purchased this thing called an Instant Pot. All right,
Hmm.
so I am into making anything and everything I can in my Instant Pot. I make my own yogurt now. I don't buy yogurt.
Oh,
I make plain. I make dulce de leche yogurt, which is, um, and so I've learned to make biryani. I've learned to make soup. So there's lots of things that you can put in the Instant Pot. You can even make banana.
hmm.
So I'm a big nerd about Instant Potting, and I've joined Facebook groups on Instant Pot and how to do different recipes. Uh, my big project or my passion right now, I work and other home responsibilities.
Yes. So I guess moving on from that. Just so I know you've lived in a lot of places, uh, in Kuwait, Libya, in Bangladesh, a little bit I think as well. So I was just wondering how living, if if and how living in different countries has affected your way of teaching and how you deal with the kids and things like that, and if it's made things easier in any way.
I think it's made things easier and difficult, both ways. Easier because I do have experiences being in other countries, so I can bring in a whole different perspective that kids in this country may or may not have. Just experiences living in other countries, how things work in different countries versus over here. I think sometimes, like at one point, I had shared that the weekends in the Middle East, when I lived in Kuwait, the weekend
Yeah,
Thursday, Friday, and they were all confused as what. So simple things like that you take for granted here on a day-to-day basis, um, things don't work that well in other countries. That's one. The other thing is I feel like it's a disadvantage for me because I don't always know the kids
mm-hmm.
here have gone through while they've gone through school. When I was a biology curriculum, for example, I took biology in college. I took biology when I was in school, but I didn't know what
Yeah,
the students in this country traditionally learn. So I had to go back, review all of that. We don't have textbooks in our school, so we have the liberty to teach what not the content because that's dictated by the state, but we have liberty
Okay.
in how we teach it and what experiments we do and things like that. Like
Yeah.
so public ISD, they tell you
Yeah.
exactly what to teach and what experiments to do. Uh, so we don't have to stick to that, and I like that. But again, the discipline research when teaching because I don't know how far into a topic I have to go because I didn't have that
Mm.
experience going through the school system here. But I feel like I bring a fresh perspective given my culture, religion, to the
Okay.
students.
Yeah,
This
and
area.
one question I have that I'm very interested about is like how are the students different in foreign schools versus over here?
My school when I was growing up was very strict. A mixture of I grew up in
Mm.
Kuwait, so we had a mix of Kuwaiti royal family. We had people who were, we had other Arabs, a lot of Egyptians. We had
Yeah.
um,
Mm.
the Indo-Pak group, which weren't that many. It was surprising. Students were Arab, and so here do have some kids who are children of immigrants or immigrants themselves. So
Mm.
the diversity is stark. You know, there's a between the students I grew up with versus the students that I have right now. Obviously, they have a whole new set of problems that come with them
Yeah.
because the world has changed between when I was in school and now, obviously. And I don't know if I go back to my old school
Yeah.
if they have the same issues as this country. Um, but that would
Okay.
be something I
Yeah,
have
and I
to
assume like
look
an
into.
increase in diversity would mean that people are a lot more accepting and it's easier to get into a group if you had just moved into a school if it was more diverse because they have a lot of different perspectives and there's probably a lot more groups that you could fit into.
I agree. My school is very diverse. Um, we have a lot of Asian people. We have, well, Asian in general, and then we have a big, very big African American community. We have Hispanic, and I think each of
Mm.
those populations are kind of equal as compared to the white population. Where if you go to North Texas schools, public schools, you'd have
Yeah.
the white population to be
Well,
generally the highest one,
not at
and
Jasper.
that's not the case in our school.
That was a different case. Mm.
I haven't been to Jasper, so
Yeah, I think majority of schools
it's
because
a
I mean that's
special
just the
case. Like
majority over
I
here.
think
That's
they were like,
obviously how it's going to be. I think that's another benefit that we got from going to Jasper and Plano West because it was incredibly diverse, and I think Plano in general is a lot more diverse and accepting, and just Dallas in comparison to other Texas cities, major cities, is a lot more diverse, especially like Austin and San Antonio. Um, so I think that that was a big benefit for us. It also helped guys like me and Omer, who coming into high school were a lot more shy than we are now, just fit into a new group, and so it was really nice for us. And I think it's great that the culture has shifted towards that.
yeah.
that's good. I think Plano's unique in that sense.
Mm,
McKinney schools, I feel, aren't as diverse.
okay.
So yeah, we're kind of isolated over there. Omar, you have a question?
Yeah. Basically, we were talking earlier in the podcast about a whole bunch of teachers that have affected us, but something I've always wondered if it also goes the other way around, like were there students that really that influence or effect on you throughout your years as a
Sorry,
teacher?
can you repeat that? I missed it all.
Um, earlier in the podcast, we were talking about how different teachers really affected who we are uh, throughout the years. So I was just wondering if it also goes the other way around, that you've had students that have had a huge effect on you throughout your years as a teacher.
Um, I've had I do have students sprinkled my career that I try to keep in touch with. I have students who made a big difference to me as a teacher just because they genuinely shown that they then start working as a teacher. You on children, you have to kind of um, hang on. I'm at a loss for words. Um, so when you're coming into the beginning, it's easy to be all
Yeah.
about the content and not about connections that you make. Um, you go through your career, you realize that wait a sec, it's more about the connections because students will always remember a teacher that made a difference in their lives and not about how
Yeah.
many multiplication facts they learned with that teacher or they figured out the parts of the cell, for example. So I did many years ago. She's, I want to say she's in Boston, but she would always make notes for me and just say hi or thank you for being my teacher. Simple things. And at the end of the year, and this
Wow.
was fourth grade, mind you, she learned how to crochet. Students that make a difference to me and they keep you kind of grounded
Yeah.
and they remind you that it's honestly how you make them feel safe because once students
Mhm.
feel safe being in the class, otherwise they're always on edge. Nothing's
Yeah.
gonna go through to them.
Right.
Yeah. That yeah, it generally like I guess I can't speak from as much experience from a student's perspective, but I definitely do agree that most of the teachers that had an impact, and when Omar and I were talking about it, most of the teachers that had an impact were the ones that, you know, taught you something about life, not just the subject that they were teaching, and they made, like you said, made you feel comfortable. Which, after hearing you say all of this, makes me want to have been in one of your classes. But just yeah, that thing with a teacher just saying, like, making you feel comfortable, and like I said before, a lot of my favorite teachers were ones that taught me that learning can be fun and still provide value to you. And I think that's one of the most important lessons that some teachers had ever taught me, because once a student understands that, once I understood that, I was able to, like, go on and have like a unique perspective about whatever I was working on, and I was actually able to enjoy learning and growing. Because, and I think what a lot of students don't understand, because, and this may be the fault of the current school system. Have you seen That Is Amin Bar? Or have you
Yeah.
seen much Bollywood? You have? Okay, I watched it like last night for the very first time, actually. And it's such a good movie. I 100% recommend it. It was so good. Yeah. Basically, it's about this kid who, for Omer, have you seen it?
No, and
Okay.
yeah, the audience
Well,
might not have. Oh,
yeah, a lot of
fine.
the honest might not have, so I'm gonna explain a little bit about it. I won't spoil it, but it's about this kid who, he's not the best at learning because he's dyslexic, and so he has a lot of trouble. But there was one teacher that came in and made a really big difference in his life, and so just that shows that message quite a bit. And I think a lot of teachers have taught me this, that you should be okay with failure, because that's how you learn, right? You should be okay with, like, maybe you didn't get the best grade on a certain test, and things of that nature. And I think that's what the school system itself doesn't really allow for, is room for mistakes. Because once, especially in really competitive schools like Jasper and Plano West, when you get a bad grade, a lot of the time it feels like, okay, like, my life is over and now I have a 4.69 instead of a 4.7. Everything is bad, and, like, that they feel like that's the end of the world, and so the school system doesn't really allow for, it's okay for you to dip down in GPA a little bit, but as long as you learn from that mistake and you're better because of it. I think that's and obviously you can comment on this a bit more because you are a teacher, but I think if the school system allowed for mistakes and a little bit more creativity, it would do a lot for the students.
I think you would do well in the IB program because our grading system is very different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so every subject has four different types of assessments. Test, two of them are pertaining to lab reports, and then one of them is your project, which is your creative end.
Mm-hmm.
We have these kinds of different assessments to allow students who do well in one criterion, but then we have also the other criterion to for the creative student shine. So it kind of levels off at the end of the semester. So
Mm-hmm.
the assessments in the IB are they make us um, provide a variety of assessments for the students. We also have our report cards are solely based on the unit assessments, which are the tests and the projects and the lab reports. So
Mm-hmm.
any classwork, any homework assignment that we do in class or even quizzes, they don't count towards the final grade. So the way we provide an analogy is, for example, if you're learning to ride a bike, you don't want to be counted off for not knowing how to write it. So if you're
Yeah.
practicing, you don't want to be tested, right? You want to
Mm-hmm.
be tested only when you're ready and when you have perfected that skill, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way we look at it. We kind of check for progress. So as you're learning to ride your bike, we check for progress, and that's where our quizzes, homework, and classwork come into play. And then once the students are ready, we do our summative assessment, which is the final test for that particular unit or final assessment. And so our report cards are based of only those grades. So as you are faltering but learning, you don't get marked off. So when you are saying that you get a bad grade in some assignment, it doesn't break the students, right? So
Okay.
it's only at the very end that it counts. Um, but also, I feel like when you said that, a grade can ruin your life, I feel like that's a lot of family culture
True.
that comes into play.
That's very true.
And so I feel like there's a lot of pressure from parents to get good grades so they can make it to college, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're in ninth grade, college is so far away, you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I don't know. It's tough on students because
Mm-hmm.
you're not only trying to learn, and parents know that
Yeah.
you're trying, but they also don't understand that things are difficult. They're not as
Mm-hmm.
easy as they used to be, or it's not the same
Yeah.
as it used to be when the parents were in school. And a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
people don't understand that.
Yeah, it's very
Um,
different. I mean, being top ranked in your class right now is very different from being top ranked in your class in Pakistan in like the 70s, because that was because I mean before a lot of things were percentile based as well, and now they're not, so the rank doesn't matter as much. And one thing that like we're always told that GPA, this number, matters a lot, but when you consider a lot of different jobs, and that's why I like what you said about the IB program, just the way that it works. It's too late for me to get into that now, but and I really wish I went to your school and had you as a teacher, but um, but yeah, like that IB program, it just sounds like it's a lot better for the kids, because like you said, a ninth grader isn't thinking as far ahead as college. That's so far away. Then the GPA just becomes a number, and that number is everything that your life is based on at that point. And so that's really all you're reduced to. But they don't realize that, okay, if I don't do well in high school, maybe and maybe they could spend a little bit more time on a creative passion, something that makes them happy, and they can learn from it as well and grow as a person, so that they can do well further in, like, later in life. And then they realize once they get to college, especially if you're doing something like computer science or IT, you don't have to have the best grades in college, because a lot of the times it's your networking and your actual skills that get you a job, right? Being able to put on your resume that you were able to do certain projects, being able to communicate with people effectively and get them to hire you for internships and then eventually for a job. Those are a lot more useful skills in my opinion. And I'm only like, I find it interesting, and I'm only learning this right now in college, like 6 years after 6 years of thinking that my GPA mattered that much, and it still does. I'm not saying that it doesn't. It just doesn't hold as much weight as a lot of people believe, and it's not. You shouldn't get depressed over it. You shouldn't put everything into it. It's a lot more important to spend time on your own creative passions, and like we've been saying, right now is just enjoy the process of learning.
Yeah, I think a lot of our schooling and a lot of the pressure from society and family just it drives the passion out of learning. So at that point, students just they do it for the sake of the grade and not for the sake of the learning.
Yeah.
Which if you're a lifelong learner and if you're learning with your own motivation, then you remember the things and you learn from that and it affects you on a day-to-day basis versus just memorizing something, regurgitating on a test and then
Yeah.
moving on because you're never going to remember that stuff.
Exactly. And more so in quarantine, in my opinion, because learning online, then it's just about the grade. Now, like, tests are open books, and now your challenge is, depending on how it's made, your challenge is trying to find all of the right answers. And sometimes things are not supposed to be open book, in a lot of classes online, but it becomes that way. So, now it's become more about the grade and, paying for your own check account than it is about actually learning the subject. So now more than ever, these things hold true, and they have for a while. I don't see any changes coming too soon. um, but I guess since we are nearing the end, and I will phrase this as two questions and you can answer it in parts, but what's one thing that the general schooling system can do? I know you talked a lot about your IB program, but like general public schools, what's something that they can do to encourage kids to learn more and enjoy the process of learning? And what is something that the students can do that you don't see much on their end, or even in their homes, something that they can do to motivate themselves to learn and still be successful while not having to slave over their GPA and be so worried about it?
As far as public schools, what can they do to motivate students? Allow for students to choose what they learn to an extent. Now, if you're learning about cells, the students can do some research on a particular organelle in the cell, for example, or something that gives them choice.
Yeah.
Um, I know that my son is in sixth grade, and one of his favorite teachers is the social studies teacher, and that's simply because she uses technology and fun games in class. And he's online, by the way. So she uses a website called Pear Deck, and there's another one called Nearpod, very similar. And those are interactive slides and that has embedded games and questions in them that really allow students to interact with the material versus just listening to lectures. So allowing students, first of all, to decide what they want to do within reason,
Yeah.
and then really ramp up the interaction that teachers have with the students, especially the online ones, because they don't have that one-on-one connection. So allowing them to interact or giving them fun things to do while still learning is really, really important.
Yeah.
And I think that's about it. What was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
What's something that the students can do, or maybe just their families?
Um, so this is one of my peeves, but families putting pressure on children for grades is one of my biggest things because I see it in especially the Asian community in school. I see those students if they get something below an 80, they are depressed. Their parents, like I had one student whose parents took his devices away because he got a 77 average in quarter one.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Dang.
I'm like, oh,
Yeah, I actually had a friend that I worked with when I was working at DSW, and she said that like she came to work one day and she was really mad, and she was like, "My parents grounded me. You know why?" And I was like, "Why?" And she was like, "I got a 98 in algebra." And I
Not
was like,
100.
"What? Like you didn't get 100, and that's why you got like she still got an
You're
A
still,
plus. Like that's
yeah,
still
you're
the
still max
highest
grade.
possible GPA." And she was like,
Not
"Yeah,
good
no, I
enough.
got grounded." And I was like, "Wow, that's strict." Granted, she did get into MIT, but that's I guess that's a
At what
different
cost,
standard.
though? Like,
I
at the cost of her mental health?
yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Um, so that seems to be the situation for a lot of people. I mean, is it worth getting into MIT if you're not even gonna enjoy it? Like, maybe one day you'll get a job and you'll settle down. But I think I'm okay with going to UTD and being happy and getting a job that I'll be happy with afterwards, rather than slaving away for years trying to get into a school only to realize that I'll get a job and things will be the same. Maybe I might have more money and things might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, you have to consider your own values first.
Yeah, I agree. So what students can do is I would encourage students to pick up projects on their own, like do independent things just for their own learning. It could be something that they picked up from class, they can expand on, or it could be something that they enjoy doing. For example, if they're good at writing, they could start working on books. I have a teacher friend of mine, her twin girls are in sixth grade, and they've been writing books and they've published quite a few.
Wow,
Yeah, so they
that's incredible.
self-published. I don't know if it wasn't a major
Okay,
publisher, but it's one of those
but that's
self-published, but
still
still
pretty
If
published.
you're
It,
impressive.
yeah,
I would
not
be
bad.
sending them an email right now.
You what?
If it was a major publisher, I'd be sending them an email with questions right now.
Yep.
Uh,
Um, so they've published, and the friend of mine had cancer last year, so a lot the books are about their mom's journey through cancer treatment.
Wow.
wow.
So it was pretty, the books are pretty interesting. I read
Wow.
a few of them.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, and well, I guess on a similar note, and just one more sort of lighthearted question before we sort of begin to wrap things up. Um, like teachers, in many different forms, um, not just as the profession, but also in the form of mentors and stuff, get depicted a lot in across media in books, movies, games, etc. So, are there any personal favorite teacher type characters that you've really enjoyed uh, across any media?
huh. I've never had that question before. Um, I don't know. Whenever I think of schools in different forms, I think of Harry Potter. Uh, uh, so there's a couple of teachers there that I would admire. McGonagall for one, uh, but also Snape.
Real.
Snape is a very strict teacher, but also he had a heart of gold,
True. We
and
find this
he
out
did the right
towards the end.
thing.
His character arc was amazing. I'm
Yeah.
reading through the books for the first time right now. I know this. I know the story because I've seen the movies, but yeah, I'm on the Chamber of Secrets right now, and it's so good. It's just the way they set a lot of things up. But yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying about McGonagall and Snape. They're both great. A lot of the teachers in that series are just really like a lot of the connections that you build with them are great.
Yeah, it's especially interesting, like how the relationship, because he's there for 7 years, you see that relationship change, right? Because
Yeah.
Harry with McGonagall in book one is not the same with Harry with
Hmm.
McGonagall in book five.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely. Well, I do believe that's all we have time for. It's been a great conversation. I had a lot of fun. I hope you enjoyed it as well. And Omer?
and yeah, I think just before we completely wrap things up, just one last I guess we try to do a parting advice at the end of every
Yes.
segment from our guests. So just to everyone out there who's either having a tough time learning in the pandemic or a tough time, if there some teachers also watch this podcast actually, but to teachers as well. So what advice do you have to anyone trying to learn or trying to help others to learn during this pandemic? Just some of value or some advice to keep in mind.
So when the pandemic first started, I was rushing to make sure my lessons were perfect. I had the right content, um, but I was burning myself out. And so my husband, it's not a race, it's a marathon. So you need to be able to pace yourself and make sure you get to the goal you want, but it's not going to happen in one day. So it's a marathon. So keep at it. Before you run your marathon, make sure you're training. Yeah, but keep yourself healthy. All right.
Hmm. Well, good advice
Right.
from what I can only assume is a great teacher from what I've heard today. And so it was great. And Omer, you can take us away.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for reaching the end of today's episode. It's a really special landmark for us, episode 10. We're glad all of you came out here to join us today. And as always, be sure to follow us at A Cup of Coffee Pod on Instagram and Twitter, or email us at acupofcoffeepod@gmail.com. Send us an email or DM us if you have any questions or are interested in being on the podcast. And as always, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. See you later, everyone.